Today, on Energy Contact, your body is like a plant. Your legs are your roots, your arms are your leaves, and your head is the flower. How does energy get to the flower? Well, from the roots up, of course. Today, we're going to see what this upward flow of energy has to do with your chakras and your aura, and how your health, growth, and happiness depend upon it. We're rising to the occasion. It's coming up right now on Energy Contact.
I'm gonna drive away all these doubts I've been keeping and I'll keep my mind on better things. He ain't gonna worry and I ain't gonna complain. I'm gonna drive away all these doubts I've been keeping and I'll keep my mind on better things. Just keep my mind on better things.
Hello, and welcome to Energy Contact. My name is Joseph Willenbrink. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you to the production staff here in the studio for helping me get my message out to you. Energy Contact is a series I'm presenting to you as a public service. It's about attaining perfect health, growth, happiness, self-improvement, and realizing your full potential. It's designed to present you a new way of looking at yourself and a new way of looking at the world around you. We're talking about things that have to do with making an energetic contact with yourself internally and with your environment. There's no difference between the body, the mind, the spirit, the emotion, the intellect, the ego. There's no difference between mass and energy. These things are all exactly the same. There is something about us that just loves to categorize, to separate, to take one little cell, put it under a microscope, take a peek at it and think we know everything. But in fact, all that health and happiness we're talking about take place when we do just the opposite. It happens when we put these things together, when we make an energetic contact between the physical world and the unseen one. We're presenting on these programs a brand new paradigm that's thousands of years old. We're presenting extraordinary topics for ordinary people. And let's move right ahead with that. Let's bring up our slide. Everyone please understand that I am not a doctor. This show is not a medical show, it's not a medical talk show, a medical advice show, anything like that. It could not be further from it. Now I call myself an energy healer, chakra healer, things like that. So might a lot of other people. But state, federal, and local governments call me no such thing. And it's very important to understand that. There's a lot of important stuff on your screen right now. Please read all of that, if you will, with your full attention. But when you've got it down, now would be a great time to locate a pencil and paper. Here's why you want to do that. At the end of this show, we're going to run some credits, and on those credits, there's going to be contact information for me. Now, I invite and encourage you to contact me. I'm sort of hoping something that I have to say to you today might inspire you to want to do that. But in order to contact me, you're going to need that contact information. In order to get it, you're going to need a pencil and paper. There will be plenty of time to jot it down when the credits roll if you've got your pencil and paper ready. All right, let's come back up here. Today's program is episode number 78 of Energy Contact. And if you're tuning in for the first time, thanks and welcome. These shows are sequential. They build. We're talking about things we've defined and explained and introduced previously. So there's some ramp-up stuff, some up-to-speed things that you will have missed out on. However, I do my very best to make sure that every show has a lot of value on a standalone basis. So this show, you'll get a lot of good stuff out of it, just all by itself. Please stick around. However, if what you see piques your interest, well then I will advise and encourage you to look around because there will be earlier programs airing at later times. They'll either be re-airing right here on this station or they'll be on at different days and different times in different areas. And if you look for them, I'll appreciate it. And now, it's the time of the show where I get to introduce my co-host to you. There's my buddy Slim on camera there. This is Slim, and he is here for a reason. Since we're investigating what it is that the energy contacts in the physical self, we've got to know a few things about a few things, don't we? We've got to know something about energy. And this show is all about energy. We're talking all about it. But all of that energy out there somewhere does us no good whatsoever. It does us no good until we bring it into focus, until we bring it into contact with something. My pal Slim here is here to help us understand that thing that the energy contacts. Remember, a body without energy is just a corpse. And energy without a body, well, it might be a lot of cool things, but none of them are human. Okay, previously on Energy Contact, we have been looking at your chakras and your auras for the last little while, invisible things. And we have seen that what is visible and what is invisible have absolutely nothing to do with what is unreal and what is real. Matter doesn't matter. It's just a projection. It's an optical illusion. It's a mirage. It's that energetic world of wavelengths and frequencies and flows and vibrations. That's all that's real. That's all that's important. And we have seen that those wavelengths and frequencies flow up. They flow from the earth up. Energy falls up. We in the physical world, well, we keep falling down until we hit the earth. And then we either bounce back or we shatter. Within this physical world, everything looks like something else. We live in a world of scale models, don't we? We've seen atoms that look just like solar systems. We've seen mass that acts like waves, visible things modeled in the image and likeness of invisible things. And that is what's led us to look at our aura and our chakras, and to look at the upward flow of energy that goes through them. We've seen that in fact we really do not have an aura. We have subtle bodies, sheaths, layers, shells. We have 6 of them. And that the energy of the resultant aura made from these things can flux and flow. It changes in size and shape and color, things like that. And some people can see that phenomena. The energy to do all this, we have seen, is somehow spun or woven by those chakras. We've seen that this physical body, this physical us, is just one of those visible things that is woven by the invisible things. It's modeled after the invisible things. It's an unreal entity built on a very real prototype. But most people, even people that sort of know and understand that we have these subtle bodies, don't understand really what they are or what they do. Why? Well, it's because they're too preoccupied with things that are not real. We have seen that of the hundreds of chakras in you, that you have 7 main ones. And these 7 main chakras have a 1-to-1 correspondence with your 7 bodies. That is, each of the main chakras corresponds to one and only one subtle body. One and only one body, one physical one, and 6 subtle ones. Those 6 subtle ones, those are your auras. They're far less visible, but every bit as real. Another thing that we've seen since our very first episodes, is that very real and very invisible body intellect. We've seen how the same things in our brain, we were always told they were brain things. The things that give us thought, reason, recall, memory, logic, intellect, intelligence, and such, they are in fact in every cell of our body. They permeate us. They saturate us. Your body is just an unreal projection of that invisible body intellect. It's made in its image and likeness, and it's made that way on purpose. There's nothing random about it. There's nothing happenstance about it. And so today, that's what we want to understand. We want to understand the real stuff, and we want to introduce you to somebody that you really ought to know by now. So, we're continuing to look at your chakras, discover what they mean, what they do, what they are, and their relationship to your aura. We've seen for a while now where your chakras and auras sort of fit into the big picture, but here recently we've been zooming in, getting to some specifics. We want to see in practical terms what that upward flow of energy is and how it affects our physical self. What are the consequences of inhibiting those flows, and what are the rewards of promoting them? We want to do this so that we can take charge, to take away that false and misleading sensation of randomness, to take that out of the flow of energy and start making things the way we want them to be. Over the next number of programs, we're going to look at your chakras in detail, one by one. But for today, we're just interested in the connection between those internal chakras, those external sheaths, and the upward flow of energy that goes through them. And we're still just barely scratching the surface of that. But even this new understanding is not the goal. The goal is to get to what all this aura chakra business has to do with your health, your growth, your happiness, your self-improvement, and the realization of your full potential. Remember that great saints and seekers throughout history, throughout the ages, have done just fine on their spiritual path without ever knowing what a chakra was or where it was or anything like that. The chakras at an intellectual level are not important. And yet, we're coming to an intellectual understanding of them. And so today, in order to do that, I'm just throwing more data at you and repeating some of the names and facts and vocabulary we've looked at previously. Repetition is a good thing. It takes a while for some of this stuff to sink in. Now, if you're a geek like I am, you might want to get your pencil and paper ready to take some notes. This is the sort of note-taking material we're going over today. We're looking at esoteric things analytically, looking at mysticism through scientific eyes. And while this analysis is very worthwhile, it also means that to some extent, we're classifying and categorizing. That's dangerous territory on energy contact. Please remember that sort of an analytical frontal brain understanding of this stuff without the experiential, the conceptual knowledge goes with it. It'll take you away from your goal rather than towards it. All right, so that's where we're headed today, but now we've reached the part of our program where we get to take a break for a second. We've arrived where we get to take our virtual field trip, our journey in our mind's eye. And for today's field trip, visualize that you and I are in a large garden, a nice big one, a huge one, very lush and just filled with all sorts of plants and trees and vegetables, all sorts of fun stuff. And there's some little bushes and things like that everywhere, but you notice as you view these plants that a lot of them are very upright. They're standing up. Things like sunflowers and corn, things that have stalks. And you're just fascinated with them because they do appear to be standing. And they seem to be just reaching right up to heaven. And it makes you wonder for a moment, what holds these things up? And then you look at yourself and you think, well, I'm a vertical creature and I'm upright. Maybe that's got something to do with it. Well, yeah, but not really, because you've got muscles. They're what holds you up, and if you release them, you'd fall in a heap. So your being upright is a decision. And oh, by the way, you can't do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There comes a point where you have to decide to stop holding yourself upright and rest. These plants don't have any of that going on, but they do seem to have a system of circulating energy from the earth upward, from the root up. It would seem that this energy is all they have. Well, this energy and the physical stuff that it manifests. And in some way, when these plants are healthy, this upward flow not only keeps them upright, but it also generates a healthy glow about them that you can somehow perceive. Hold that thought. Let's reset where we are. We've seen that we really don't have an aura. What we call an aura is a group of things the old yogis called our subtle bodies. We have 7 main bodies, 1 physical one and 6 increasingly more subtle ones. Bodies that we can envision in layers like an onion. And we can imagine their appearance being a little bit like the wavy lines down a road on a hot day. We've also seen that while we have hundreds of chakras, we have 7 main ones. Now, one of the main reasons, or one of the main things that makes these 7 main chakras main, is the fact that each one of them corresponds to one and only one of these bodies. And another thing that makes them main chakras is the fact that they are all located along a stalk, just like those stalks we saw in the garden. And the name of that stalk is the Sushumna Nadi. And that Sushumna Nadi, as we've seen previously, goes along a path that's roughly equivalent to our spine. Let's bring up a slide and investigate that one-to-one correspondence a little bit. Here you can see those onion-like layers. See that on the left of your screen? Those represent the subtle bodies. And you can see chakras on that fellow too. You can also see how the 7 main chakras and the 7 main bodies are so intrinsically entwined. Now there's names for those bodies, and the names are descriptive of what they do. On the other side of your screen there is a more schematic representation of your chakras, and you'll notice from that the middle 5 chakras have a front and a back, and they point out horizontally, parallel to the earth and parallel to each other. The top and the bottom chakras are vertical. They point out perpendicular to the earth, and they do not have a front and a back. In a very real way, they are the front and the back of each other. Now that little pipeline that they're on, That's called the Sushumna Nadi, and while it is not your spine, you can see from that picture why people tend to describe the chakras as being along your spine. Let's look at these chakras and bodies in some detail. Let's go right to our next slide. Now, energy always falls up, and so do the colors. And you can see them there as we get specific. We're starting at the bottom, and you can see that red root chakra corresponds to the physical body. That's what it is. It's the chakra of the physical body, and that's profoundly important because it means that every physical thing going on with you is caused at and solved at the very root of you. So the reason you're not fixing yourself is because you aren't looking there. And that's about 50 episodes of Energy Contact right there. And we'll get to all of them. But for now, we're just glancing past it. That root chakra is called in Sanskrit the Muladhara chakra. And we'll get to what these words mean momentarily. Let's move up. The second chakra there, that orange one, we know that as the sacral chakra or the pelvic chakra. Or in Sanskrit, the Svadhisthana chakra. And it corresponds to your emotional self, to your emotional body. That's pretty profound too. That yellow third chakra, called the solar plexus chakra, corresponds to your mental body, your mental self. A spiritual thought has a yellow color, in fact. The name of that solar plexus chakra is the Manipura chakra. The green fourth chakra there, that's the heart chakra, and it corresponds to the astral body. All that astral travel you hear about. It's a journey of the heart, literally and figuratively. Now, the heart chakra is known in Sanskrit as the Anahata chakra. Next up is the blue throat chakra, which maps to something called the etheric body. It is the Vishuddha chakra, that throat chakra. And then moving up, there's that third eye chakra that everybody seems to be so enamored with. That's the chakra of the celestial body. And the third eye chakra is known as the Ajna chakra. Now, the top chakra, called the crown chakra, is the chakra of something called the causal body. The crown chakra is the Sahasrara chakra. And the causal body is so named because it is the cause of the physical body. All right, let's come back up here. Okay, so you remember how we said that the first chakra and the seventh chakra were the front and back of each other? Well, now you can see why. The root chakra is the cause of everything physical in you, or it has to do with everything physical of you. And the seventh chakra is the reason why you have a physical you. Now, while I'm primarily using this Kundalini model, this yogi model to illustrate how energy moves through you, there are other great models in the world too. And they all deal with the upward flow of energy through you. Let's look at one of them. Let's be Chinese for a moment, even though we will be so at a very cursory level. And at that cursory level, Chinese philosophy is all about yin and yang. You've heard those terms before. Some people will think because yin and yang are opposites, that the philosophy underneath it is a dualistic one. But in fact, that's not the case. The ancient Chinese are monists, just like the yogis are, and just like I am, and just like you are, I hope. The point of understanding yin and yang is to understand those things which must be transcended to get to the one real thing, just like Shakti had to do in her journey. All right, I'm getting a little abstract, so we're going to leave that there for a moment. And we're going to find out what you have to do with a ficus or a philodendron. And we'll find out what all that has to do with energy falling up. Now, according to these ancient Chinese, we're basically like plants. My buddy Cool Chi Guy here is Chinese, so we'll let him demonstrate. Our legs are our roots. Our arms are our leaves. And our head is the flower. Can you see how anatomically there's something very close to that? There's his little leaves right there, and his flower right on top. Now, energy falls up, and so our job is to get the energy from the earth all the way down here, up to heaven, all the way up here. This is the very same thing yogis tell us when they talk about getting energy from the earth up the Sushumna Nadi. Now, earth energy is very yin compared to sun energy or heaven energy, which then, of course, is relatively yang compared to the earth. Now, because my viewers are very astute, I know that some of you are thinking, yeah, but what about that yang energy? If I'm like a plant, I need that too. Plants need sunshine, they need photosynthesis. Plants need heaven energy. Well, that's true. In fact, every plant needs both, just like you do. They need energy from the earth to give them nutrition, and energy from the sun so that they can do something with that nutrition, convert it into chlorophyll and things like that. Pull a plant out by its roots and it will die regardless of the amount of sunshine it has. And with rare exception, put a plant in the dark and it will die regardless of the quality of the topsoil. We're just like those plants. And just like those plants, we are earth creatures. We're made of carbons and hydrogens and oxygens, earth elements. And so our job is to take care of the earth energy. We're always in contact with the earth. Gravity takes care of that. But it takes a little work to get connected to heaven. It takes work to bring that yin energy up from the center of the earth, into our roots, out through the tops of our leaves and our flowers, and up into heaven. But when we do that, heaven is pleased with that. Heaven sees it as an offering and is pleased with the offering and says, hey, thanks a lot. And in return, I will now take this heaven energy and take it down to the bottom of your feet. I'll take it down to the center of the earth. Now, please don't let your belief in what God is or is not get in the way of your understanding this information right now. For right now, just roll with me if you can. And let's see where we find ourselves. Right now, we've brought all this earth energy all the way up to heaven. And then all that heaven energy is all down here where it used to be exclusively the territory of earth energy. And now something awesome has happened. You've transcended. Congratulations, you've made it. There is no more heaven and earth. There's no more yin and yang, no rich and poor, no hot and cold, no healthy and sick. None of these things. There's no more opposites. You've gotten through all that stuff. There's no more appearances of the rainbow colors of the electromagnetic spectrum. There's only the pure white light. So what does this have to do with chakras, you're thinking? Well, Kundalini energy is yin energy. It's earth energy. And all of a sudden, we're yogis again. As you recall, our job as yogis is to take energy from the base of the earth, bring it up our Sushumna Nadi, which runs along an area very close to our spine. Take it all the way up through our crown chakra, our seventh chakra up here. And do what? And send it up to heaven. Remember Shakti's upward journey? We don't really have time to review Shakti today, but perhaps you recall her story. When we bring Shakti, or Kundalini Shakti as we call it, all the way up to meet Shiva, we have transcended all of those pairs of opposites. Those Raga Dveshas we spoke of in previous shows. Those Raga Dveshas are pairs too. They exist in a world of yin and yang. They exist in the physical world of phenomena. So, the story is really pretty much exactly the same. There is only one story. All right, now all this stuff is exciting, but as this is the case with every education when you're learning about stuff, it's also wrought with a bunch of dry facts and datas. And here comes some more of it. Get out your pencils and let's bring up our next slide. We're going to go over some words, and we're going to go over them far too quickly. Just to give you an overview, we'll spend more time with each of them in the future. And as we always do on Energy Contact, we're going to start from the root up, from the bottom up. That bottom word there, Muladhara, that's your root chakra, and the word translates as root. There's no surprise there. The reason that yogis sit in a lotus position when they meditate is because they want to connect their root chakra to the earth. Literally, not analogously, not figuratively. They want to make a physical connection so they can bring energy up through their roots and out through their leaves and their flowers so they can bear fruit. Sadhisthana, moving up, Svadhisthana, means roughly your own home. That's that second chakra there. And since the second chakra is at the very bottom of the abdomen and the top of your gender organs, the word comes from the personal and intimate nature of that part of you. Manipura translates roughly as city of jewels, and the significance of that is the fact that the crude ore of you and the precious metals that it refines tend to be right there. It's the chakra of self-refining, of self-control. Moving up anahata at the heart means unstruck. And it refers to the fact that your heart beats like a drum, even though there's no drummer, even there's no drumsticks striking it. Vishuddha, next up, the chakra of expression. The direct translation of Vishuddha is complete purity. And the significance of that is that purity cannot really be complete until it can be purely expressed. Ajna, at the brow, or the third eye, means command, or the guru's command, poetically. And because the Ajna chakra is the command center of both your brain and your energetic self, it gets that title. And then finally, Sahasrara. Well, technically it means 1,000-fold, but with a very little poetic license, it's become be known more as the 1,000-petaled lotus. And that is poetic. Maybe you've heard that term before. It signifies the thousands of spiritual qualities and virtues and powers, you name it, that the enlightened soul attains and exhibits. All right, let's come back up here. Now, all those words are Sanskrit words. And if you've heard these names pronounced a little differently in your yoga class or something, it's all right, relax. We're not in a world of rights and wrongs right now. Sanskrit is a transliterated language. What that means is that the sounds are translated into different letters. They have a different alphabet. Chinese is a transliterated language too. And Sanskrit has different word endings depending on how these words are used in sentences and stuff. So people pronounce them differently. And while pronunciations are important, everything's important, for right now, we've got a lot of latitude. Remember that the Indian model is only one model. And other than the fact that it is a very, very good model, there's nothing's absolute about it. Nothing so deal or no deal. Great saints throughout history have done just fine without knowing what a chakra is, ever having heard the word, knowing what Sanskrit was, or even knowing that an India existed. Okay, so where do we find ourselves now? We've got the invisible world coming into focus. But it looks a little bit different than you might have thought, huh? You hear in church about your soul, you hear in yoga class about spirit, you hear in your therapy session about psyche, all these words, but no one is too quick to explain what these words mean, not in a tangible sense. That's because these people don't know either, and neither did their teachers that taught them. And do you know why they can't figure it? It's because they spend too much time preoccupied with the unreal. But we're figuring it all out right here on Energy Contact. And that's where we're going over the next couple of shows. But today, we're out of time. Thanks for joining me. I wish you peace and positive energy and a healthy life in Energy Contact.
Drive away all these doubts I've been keeping, and I'll keep my mind